a tear at her eye, jaws closing underwater. This is the Nile crocodile. For centuries, the oldest lie, fake grief over a kill. Her bite, 5,000 pounds per square inch, strongest alive. By the end, you'll know its truth. The charge, a monster's false tears. Evidence, now. For centuries, Nile travelers said she weeps over prey to lure the gullible close. The phrase entered language, crocodile tears, shorthand for grief that isn't real, sorrow performed, not felt. The same meaning 2,000 years, bestiaries, scripture, speech, why, long forgotten. The tears made the monster believable. If an animal could fake sorrow, it could plan, deceive, be evil. So the myth of a calculating monster took root and never let go. They call her remorseless, cold-blooded in temper and biology, a killing machine without feeling. Watch closely, and the accusation writes itself. She lies motionless for hours, only eyes and nostrils breaking the surface. No warning, no pursuit, just stillness. Then, in an instant, everything changes. Watch the jaw, built to end a struggle in under a second. A blue wildebeest lowers its head to drink at the water's edge. This, they say, is where the truth of her nature shows itself. The strike is total. No mercy, no hesitation, no feeling visible anywhere in it. For generations, no visible feeling was read as no feeling at all. A monster in armored skin, a killer wearing false grief. It's why her image marks ancient carvings to fear and appease. Why her hide was hunted by the millions for leather. Why she stays among the most feared animals alive. But a verdict built on an old phrase is not one built on evidence. And the evidence, real, documented, inconvenient to the myth, tells a very different story. Before we reach it, look at the accused once more, exactly as the myth wants. Eyes fixed, jaws closing. And there, at the corner of her eye, a single tear. This is the image that gave language its oldest lie about deception. This is the image we are about to put on trial. The first charge is filed, that her grief is theater, and her theater is proof of malice. The court now turns to the evidence. Biologists tested it. Are the tears even real? Yes, real tears, filmed while feeding. But the cause isn't sorrow, performance, or manipulation. Feeding pushes air into tear ducts. Plumbing, not performance, a quirk misread for millennia. The myth, tears right, meaning wrong. Now consider the accusation of remorseless violence. A bite with, quite literally, nothing to check it. The measurement tells a different story. Now consider the accusation of remorseless violence. A bite with, quite literally, nothing to check it. The measurement tells a different story. At roughly 5,000 psi, the strongest bite ever measured in a living animal. Stronger than a hyena, a lion, anything alive. That force could crush bone in an instant. And yet, watch what that same jaw can do when the target is an egg, holding a hatchling only hours from emerging. A mother rolls it gently between her teeth, applying only the pressure needed to crack the shell, and not 1 gram more. The bite, strong enough to end almost anything on this river, is precise enough to end nothing it doesn't intend to. The second accusation, primitive, mindless, unchanged since the dinosaurs, fares no better. Researchers filmed them balancing sticks on their snouts, luring nest-building birds to strike. That's tool use, once thought unique to primates and a few birds. Genetic studies have gone further still, revealing that what was assumed to be a single species is, in fact, 2 distinct lineages hiding under one name. Mocked as unchanged for millions of years, far more complex than the myth imagined. Watch what the myth insists a mindless animal cannot do: coordinate. A herd of plains zebra approaches the water's edge at midday, cautious but thirsty. Beneath the surface, more than one crocodile has already taken position. They do not act alone. Individuals space themselves along the likely crossing point, some driving, others waiting in ambush further along the bank. This is coordination between individuals that share no social bond beyond a shared opportunity, a rarer, more calculated kind of teamwork than instinct alone explains. A zebra breaks toward the water's edge, and the ambush closes. The strike, when it lands, ends the chase in less than a second. This is a coordinated hunt executed by animals dismissed for centuries as too primitive to plan anything at all. And yet, watch what happens at the carcass afterward. multiple crocodiles converge, and a behavior begins that looks, to the untrained eye, like chaos. It is not chaos. It is a death roll, performed in turn, each individual twisting to tear free a portion before yielding position to the next. There is no fighting over the kill. There is a system followed by every animal present. The mindless killing machine the myth describes turns out to observe more social order at a carcass than most solitary predators on this continent. The feeding finishes and the group disperses without incident. The same calculation applied one more time. There is one more piece of evidence the myth has always misread, and it concerns not what she does, but who she is. Follow her now, away from the water, to a sun-warmed sandbank. For centuries, cold-blooded has been treated as a synonym for cold-hearted, proof that a reptile could never care for its young the way a mammal does. It is neither confusion nor monstrosity. It is simply wrong. She has dug a nest here and covered it with sun-warmed sand, and for the better part of 3 months, she has not left it unguarded. "90 days. No relief, no absence. A vigil few animals of any kind sustain." The devotion long dismissed as impossible in a cold-blooded animal is the visible marker of one of the most attentive parenting systems in the reptile world. Because what actually threatens this nest has nothing to do with her devotion, and everything to do with what waits in the reeds nearby. Follow the nest now as the sun climbs and the sand grows warm enough to finish the incubation on its own. Follow the nest now as the sun climbs and the sand grows warm enough to finish the incubation on its own. This is when the accused rarely leaves, resting at the nest's edge, motionless, watchful. But nearby, in the reeds, something else is watching too. A long, spotted shape, patient, opportunistic, waiting for exactly the moment her guard might slip. It is here, at the edge of the nest, that the deepest evidence against the myth is found. Not a monster, a mother, standing between her young and the one animal in this river with a reputation to match her own. And that vigil is far from over. Inside the nest, after nearly 3 months, the first sounds begin. High-pitched chirps from inside the shells themselves. The calls are not random. They are a signal, timed so every hatchling in the clutch breaks free within hours of each other. She hears them instantly and begins to dig. What happens next is the single most delicate act performed by the strongest bite on the planet. Remember the accusation that opened this trial. Cold-blooded, therefore cold-hearted, incapable of tenderness. She gathers hatchling after hatchling into her mouth, their combined weight forming a pouch in her throat, and carries them, unharmed, to the water. The jaw, capable of 5,000 pounds of force, closes around dozens of living young without so much as bruising one. The second charge, of coldness and neglect, is dismissed. But there is a final charge, and it may be the cruelest inversion of all. That this animal, mocked for its tears, feared for its jaw, doubted as a mother, is somehow still a menace to be exterminated on sight. Here is what the myth gets backwards, one final time. Between the 1950s and the 1980s, an estimated 3 million individuals of this species were killed for their hides, feeding a global leather trade that very nearly emptied this river of them entirely. The species that recovered did so slowly and only where protection allowed it. Today, where human settlement expands fastest into her range, conflict rises fastest too, not because she has changed, but because the water she has always lived in now has people in it. The animal blamed for the danger is overwhelmingly the one whose world shrank first. Night falls over the river, and for a few hours, even this ancient animal finally rests. Dawn returns. The vigilance that guarded a nest 90 days turns back to the water, the next generation, a life richer than the phrase allowed. So let us return to where this trial began. A single tear forming at the corner of her eye, jaws closing beneath the surface. Look again with all you know. That tear was never a lie, just biology humans misread for 2,000 years. The charge? Deception. The evidence? Physiology, precision, devotion to young, few can match. For most of the last century, we hunted this animal by the millions for a coat she never asked to wear. Today, where she is protected, her numbers hold. Where human settlement crowds her river fastest, conflict and blame rise fastest too. The danger was never entirely hers to own. The final verdict on the final charge: this is not a species whose nature is the threat. Ours is at least as often the reason the two collide. The court has heard the evidence. Every charge, false grief, remorseless violence, primitive mindlessness, cold neglect, has been answered, one by her own recorded behavior. This is not a monster. It never was. The verdict of this court: not guilty. Vindicated, not by sentiment, but by physiology, by measurement, by 90 unbroken days at a nest. The oldest lie in language does not need our forgiveness. It was never a lie to begin with. What she needs is far simpler: to be believed, the way the evidence has always deserved. But even the most devoted mother in this river cannot watch every egg forever.